Today on Sekulow, the ACLJ has filed a new case in a lawsuit defending a fired Trump supporter.
Keeping you informed and engaged, now more than ever. This is Sekulow. We want to hear from you. Share and post your comments or call 1-800-684-3110. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
Last week we told you about a new case we filed in Nevada where a public school forced a child, a young teenager, to perform what can only be called pornographic script, lied to the parents, bans mom from reading the script at the school board. The video of that is available. We aired some of that. We represent the parents and the student there in that matter in Nevada, and we'll get into that more later in the broadcast if you missed that filing by the ACLJ that we talked about last week. And as you're starting to see the cases pick up because of the egregious actions we are seeing in states, especially some of the more liberal states across the country. A new filing happened on Friday night. We're putting out the release today. It's up at aclj.org. We have filed a lawsuit. This is in federal court in Washington State, the Western District of Washington. What happened was our client, Gary Formels, was a former U.S. Navy chief and part-time employee for the Washington State Park for more than 10 years. He was forced to resign his position because he wouldn't remove bumper stickers from his personal vehicle that were supportive of President Trump. Two of the bumper stickers said Trump 2020 and two Trump for, like Trump 2024. He was ordered either to cover up the stickers or you were forced to resign his position. Now, what's unique about him is that if you go back and look at his history, long history, both, by the way, he's a U.S. military veteran, as I said, but a long history with the park. He's been described as indispensable. Another park representative explained that she doesn't know how he would run the park without Gary. He had received special recognition in 2019. So I would assume after some of these Trump stickers were on the car, on the truck, he was awarded the Award of Excellence and Volunteer of the Year when he was a part-time staffer for the park. And so he was not just in a volunteer role. He used a park vehicle. So he would park in the staffing area and use a park vehicle. Of course, that park vehicle he wasn't putting stickers on that. We're talking about his personal vehicle when he was volunteering and just parking. He was never accused, Logan, of using his politics and talking about his politics to visitors to the park. No. In fact, this is someone who was awarded by the park. It just came about because one person complained, and the person sent in an email and said, will you make that person take those insurrectionist stickers off their truck?
And I think you could very, very rarely say that they were, number one. It wasn't like these were inciting violence type stickers here. But anyway, this is a guy's private car. This is not the public car. He was using most of the time on their land, using their transportation they provided. Wasn't using this. Was on the back of his truck. Again, you would never see this happen the other way. This is certainly just infringing on somebody's free speech and just their job. Are we really going to want the volunteers of a state park or people that work for a state park to have to agree with us on our political stances or agree with them? I mean, we kind of even talked about this. Think about all the different service vehicles you see driving around town, the postal workers or Amazon trucks or whatever you see in your normal day life if you don't go to state parks. Do we know what's on their private vehicles?
Do you care?
And do you care? Right.
They're doing their job, right? If they're getting the award of excellence from their company, who cares if they're a liberal or a conservative? And this happened not because anyone at the park and the park staff complained and said he was violating some policy. The policy somehow appeared and applied to his private vehicle, which Gary said, when I signed this, I thought it meant about like when I was talking to people at the park, when I was as a volunteer, I don't bring up my politics, and he never was accused of that. But this is how you cancel people out of culture. You can even cancel them from being a volunteer at a state park. And this is a U.S. veteran. So the ACLJ filing a lawsuit. There's First Amendment issues here. There's other constitutional issues here. Fighting back so that we are canceled from culture and canceled from volunteering and working because of our political views that one person disagrees with. Give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. Be right back on Sekulow.
we see something, when we hear something, when we're concerned about an issue, we don't just talk about it. We do something about it. And that goes to our Government Accountability Project.
If we allow leaders in Washington, D.C. to make decisions behind closed doors, unaccountable to the people, then we are going to get skewed and corrupt decisions.
There are lots of other places that do lots of important work for America, but the ACLJ has taken up a lane which is irreplaceable.
The Freedom of Information Act, that's a statute that allows us to get information from the government. It starts with a letter from our offices in Washington to these agencies, and it says, give us this information on these topics. And generally, they don't. And then we go to court.
We go through a series of lengthy negotiations back and forth about what they'll give or what they won't give. We may get tons of information that's redacted, and we have to then go back and say, you redacted too much. We can't really find out what you're giving us because it makes no sense. So it goes through a process of litigation.
That is how you get information, and that office is going to be more active now more than ever.
The ACLJ has been extremely active in vigorously seeking to hold these bureaucrats accountable. We have filed hundreds of FOIA requests. We have received over 20,000 pages of documents in our litigation.
Holding them accountable, holding the Biden administration accountable so that all Americans are able to have faith in their government.
We will up our efforts. We will not stop.
You're finding a nugget in a gold mine. Occasionally you'll come up with something that is really a bombshell, but you have to persist in doing it, and that's what we do.
That's a little bit of what we do through our Office of Government Accountability, and of course that comes under our Office of Government Affairs. So your support of the ACLJ supports all of that.
Taking your calls at 1-800-684-3110. We are fighting back whether it is just absurd, the pornography forced to be read by a teenage student in a public school drama class where they had no choice. It wasn't the monologue that they wrote, but the teacher then, of course, the harassment that followed when the mother tried to go to the school board meeting and read just the monologue, that was shut off, and we're fighting back. And we'll get more into that. If you missed that last week, it's up at aclj.org. And a little bit later in the show, we can remind you about some of more of the facts there. I mean, there was even a contact made, like physical contact made against this teenage student. So the complaint is not only on the First Amendment issues, but even alleges assault and battery because of how the student was treated by the school, even after promises that they would not be, for instance, put in a room with only a male faculty member. They broke that promise. Put in a room only with the teacher they were that they had an issue with. They broke that. They forced her to go to a room with that. She ends up in tears, and the assault and battery claim arises there because the teacher grabbed her, physically grabbed her. This is going on in our schools when someone speaks up and says, this is embarrassing to me. I feel uncomfortable having to read something so sexually explicit that was not of my choosing. By the way, this was pick it out of the hat. And think about, again, the other student being put in that position. We even heard from a parent who called into the radio show, and we're checking with them, and said that they had a student in the class. The students quit that class. So we're following up on that as well. But we have a new case, and you're going to notice more and more cases we talk about the ACLJ fighting back against this cultural censorship of our views. This case, the new case, arises in Washington State at Fort Casey State Park, which is one of 4 central Whidbey area state parks and is located on Whidbey Island in Island County, Washington. That's Washington State. Gary Formals is a retired U.S. Navy's chief and retired general contractor who's volunteered at the park for more than 10 years. His volunteer duties included checking in park visitors, answering questioning, monitoring campsite. In exchange for his duties, he was allowed to camp for free in the park for 3 months each spring and fall. In addition to volunteering his services at the park, he was also a part-time employee. As an employee, he worked on equipment as an equipment operator and groundskeeper for over 6 years. His work was recognized in 2019. He was awarded the Award of Excellence and Volunteer of the Year. The staff commended Gary for his service above and beyond the call of duty. His integrity and his courteous and kind manner with everyone who meets him. Does that sound like somebody who was spouting off his political beliefs to everyone he met in Washington State at a park? Absolutely not. He has been described as indispensable. Another park representative explained that she doesn't know how we would run the park without him, to be honest. Now, when he was either serving as a volunteer employee, he wore a jacket with a state park emblem or a vest or hat. He never spoke about nor wore items expressing his religious or political beliefs to visitors in the park while fulfilling his host or other duties, both volunteer and paid. He drove his personal pickup truck to and from the park where he volunteered his service and worked as an employee. Since 2016, so he got that award 3 years after 2016, he's displayed several bumper stickers on the back window of his truck. Some of those pictures include Trump stickers. Okay, like a lot of people who are, a lot of veterans and a lot of people on their trucks display political stickers on their private vehicles. No issue for years. I mean, he got the Award of Excellence in 2019, so 3 years after those stickers went up. He even parks his truck so that visitors can't see the stickers in plain sight. When he's on duty as equipment operator, he parks his personal truck behind a shed and utilizes a park vehicle. He's not trying to slap a Trump sticker on that as well. So that's like what you were talking about, Logan. When he's doing park duties in a vehicle, he's using a park vehicle that has no political stickers at all, which is right and fine. At no time prior to April of this year, anyone ever told him to cover or remove his bumper stickers. Till April of this year.
Of this year.
Okay, so we're talking 2023.
4 weeks ago.
And 7 years ago is when he put the Trump stickers on his car, 2016. On April 3rd, 2023, a defendant in the case, one of the park staff, forwarded an email that said, please remove the insurrectionist propaganda from Fort Casey campground. And then you see the staff saying, well, I don't even think this is a big deal. This is his private vehicle. And then they try to use their policy on not talking about politics and not utilizing politics to target his personal truck, which even some of the staff said they didn't believe was correct. But ultimately, he's given the ultimatum. Take off the stickers or quit volunteering and you lose your job. He chose to stand up for his First Amendment rights, that this is his private vehicle. He doesn't talk politics in his role as a volunteer or staff. He doesn't wear political things in his role as a volunteer or staff. He drives a park vehicle when he is on park duty, so he's not driving that personal vehicle. This is just how he gets to and from work, like so many of us do. And then there's a lot of people who drive to and from work and then get in another vehicle for work. We don't judge them based off what they have on their personal vehicle. They have a First Amendment right, just like you and me. They shouldn't be banned from volunteering. People who get the Award of Excellence are now being shut down and called insurrectionists because they support the leading Republican candidate for president of the United States and a former president of the United States.
Because one person complained.
Because of one person.
That's what we got to remember. A lot of these things come from very few people. One person complained, it causes all of this chaos. And that's why we're here, though. That's why we support people, because we have clients like Gary, and we could have clients like you who are watching or listening right now, because maybe you've gone through something similar. I encourage you, if you have, go to aclj.org/help, because we can maybe help you out. And we do that at no cost.
That's right. So, and again, if you're in this kind of situation, it takes the Garys of the world who say, you know what, I'm not going to take those stickers off. I'm going to fight back because I believe my constitutional rights are being violated. I'm going to contact the ACLJ, and that's what he did.
Yep.
And we said, you know what? We also believe your constitutional rights are violated. You should be able to volunteer at that park. Most of the people that work at that park think you should be able to volunteer as well. You got the Award of Excellence after the stickers went on. So whatever policy they're talking about that you signed, they didn't have a problem with for 7 years. They didn't interpret it as applying to your personal vehicle until they got told by one visitor that you're an insurrectionist.
Yeah.
This is the classic case of trying to cancel us out of all aspects of culture. Even when we are just trying to volunteer in a state park that we pay for as taxpayers, that he pays for as a Washington state taxpayer, as a volunteer going beyond, above and beyond, as his award said, in service to the park, has had no complaints by any visitors ever before. In fact, people say he is gracious and kind, never accused of talking politics, and they try to shut him down. The choice is give up your private speech, or lose your job and your volunteer opportunity, and you don't get to stay at the campground anymore. So that is why we are representing Gary in this, again, atrocious abuse of a state policy that is so overbroad and is only, in our knowledge, has been used to shut down Gary because he happened to have a Trump sticker.
Right. I almost guarantee it would not go the other way around. I do have a interesting comment. People ask, well, how does this work if they do want help? Because we say it's at no cost. Well, the reason it can be at no cost is because people who also listen support this show. Or not the show, support the ACLJ.
That's right. Oftentimes, these are cases that would be tough for a regular firm to take. Now, we partner with firms, and we have the resources that if we need to hire an attorney for a state matter, we can because of our donors. But these cases aren't necessarily provide enough revenue for a normal firm to be able to operate. So with a nonprofit organization, legal organization like the ACLJ, we can take the cases that preserve the core constitutional rights of Americans at no cost to them because of our donors, because you support the work of the ACLJ. This is an example of that work in action. Same thing goes for the case out of Nevada, representing the parents and the daughter forced to read that pornographic monologue in class, and then the way they were mistreated by the school. And then the school board saying that you can't, this is too obscene to read at the school board meeting, which was adults. So we're able to do this because of our donors. So if you don't have a case, but you want more people like Gary to speak up, to stand up and fight back, support the work of the ACLJ. You donate today at aclj.org. Let me encourage you as well. There's a horrendous Washington state law that goes into effect in July. This is a law that is redefined for teenage runaways. What is a condition that you would not contact the parents? And the two new conditions are an abortion. So if the child wants to have an abortion and their parents aren't consenting to it, that would be a condition where you as the parent have lost control over your child, basically you've lost custody, or if your child wants to begin a gender change. And these are minors, as young as 10 years old. If you have a young person in Washington state and you want to fight back and challenge that law, we encourage you to check out and contact us at aclj.org/help. And let me explain with the way we look at this. Again, this is enticement. This is saying, hey, run away and come to us if you want the sex change. Run away and come to us to get the abortion. We won't tell your parents. Contact us, aclj.org/help.
Two Las Vegas parents are suing CCSD over an assignment where they say their 15-year-old daughter was required to read an expletive-laced monologue.
NRS 200-710. It states it is a crime when a person knowingly uses, encourages, entices, or permits a minor to be the subject of a sexual portrayal in a performance.
We represent the parents and a 15-year-old female student in the Las Vegas Clark County school system who was forced to perform a profanity-laced, sexually explicit, obscene monologue written by another one of her classmates before the entire class.
The parent has the right to control the upbringing and the education of their child. They go to a public school. The public school teacher's first mistake was allowing that particular monologue laced with profanity to be read by another student, to be drafted, first of all.
The mother of the student goes to the school board. The school board cuts her off when she's reading the monologue.
I don't love you. It's not you. It's just, I don't like your or any in that case. I cheated, Joe.
I'm sorry. Forgive me. Excuse me. I don't. Thank you so much for your. Thank you for your comment. Forgive me. We're not using profanity.
If you don't want me to read it to you, what was that like for my 15-year-old daughter to have to memorize pornographic material?
Not only are they being exposed, but now they need to be held accountable.
This is a major piece of litigation. We're going to be very aggressive in the litigation here. It's an outrage. No student should be put in this situation. No parent should be put in this situation. It's Clark County. It is Las Vegas, Nevada. They need a lesson in the First Amendment.
It's not just the curse words. It's the how obscene it is in nature. And I mean, I will encourage, I can't say it on broadcast air, but if you go to aclj.org, we've got it there for you so you can see, and you will be shocked. today, we're going to talk immigration. We're going to talk what's happening over the weekend. We're going to get into some of the news as well. Mike Pompeo is going to be joining us as well to talk about some of those issues, so you don't want to miss that. But we do want to focus on some of this ACLJ new work, new cases that have been filed. Ones that we think you'd be particularly interested in is in our audience, whether you watch our broadcast or listen to the broadcast, especially if you are a donor to the ACLJ. It's your donor dollars in action, representing these clients, standing up for their First Amendment rights, standing up against in Washington State cancel culture, in Nevada standing up for parental rights, and again against a 15-year-old forced to read what the school board called pornographic. Stop reading that. They told the mom, stop reading, that's pornographic, that's obscene. But it's okay for a 15-year-old who didn't choose, by the way. Make matters worse, they didn't write that and choose, I want to perform this. And then someone complained. No, they had to put their monologues in a hat, and they draw a random one, and then they had to memorize and perform that. So it caused emotional distress, and then how the school handled it was just horrendous. But we want to take your calls to 1-800-684-3110. We're also standing up for Gary, a military veteran volunteer in Washington State parks who was forced to quit because of Trump stickers on his truck, personal truck. This is someone who in 2019 received their Award of Excellence. And guess when those stickers went up? 2016. Guess when they got their first complaint? 4 weeks ago in 2023. But how long did it take for them to cancel Gary from his years of service to that park? A couple of weeks. And he's been canceled. But you know what he said? I'm not going to take the stickers down. I'm going to fight back. And I bet the ACLJ will fight back with me. And he was right. He contacted us at aclj.org/help. And an actual ACLJ attorney contacts you. And we then discuss it here internally and make sure that we are the right organization, that you've got the right situation for us to assist. And if we do, that's at no cost to you. So it's aclj.org/help. If you feel like you've got one of these kind of situations, contact us. There is no harm in contacting us. There's no bad contact. We want to try and assist as many people as we can on the issues that we are experts on and why the organization is created. So aclj.org/help, especially if you're out in Washington State right now and you've got kids between the age of 10 and 17. This new law there goes into effect in July, signed by your governor. If your child is a runaway, and again, not saying your child would be a runaway, but if they did run away, usually the state would contact you in 72 hours. That's the rule, unless there's other considerations. And the other consideration would be abuse and neglect. And now they've defined abuse and neglect as not agreeing to have your minor have an abortion or to begin a gender change with medications and even surgeries. And Washington State is saying, and by the way, they'll pay for it. They'll try to reunify you with your child, but if you're against that, they're going to keep them. So go to aclj.org/help if you want to help us fight back in Washington State. Let's go to the phones, Logan.
Let's go to Julie, who's calling in Oregon on line 1. Julie, welcome.
Hi, thank you, gentlemen, for taking my call. Talking about the Washington State case with the Trump stickers, I'm just south of Washington in the state of Oregon, and I go to a regional park once a week, Oxbow Regional Park, and right when you come in the gate, they have an LGBTQ flag hanging there. That's the only one that's hanging there. And then as you go by the ranger station right on the front has all four corners of these flags, the LGBTQ flag first, the BLM flag second, the American flag next. And that's just total propaganda, just as you're coming in the gate.
You know, and what's interesting there is that you've got government speech. See, what in that case, I guarantee you, the Oregon, and probably rightfully so, if those facts are just correct as they are. I don't know what other policies the park has, but if they are, they would say, well, this is our decision as the state and as the state park system that we have a government right to speech as well. So would they then, though, apply there and tell you if you were a volunteer in that park, but you can't have a Trump sticker on your personal vehicle after you've been given an award of excellence? I mean, that does seem like it's the double standard you see. The government can push its ideas, but you just want to volunteer. You're not even trying to push your ideas. This is just what's on your personal vehicle. And that still means you have to choose between your job, a job you love, a job you've been awarded for, and your volunteer work, or your First Amendment rights. And again, someone who has been working there for over a decade, had those stickers since 2016, and someone emails in 2023 complaining that they're insurrectionist stickers. That's what starts this whole, again, unconstitutional action against our client. We are fighting back for your First Amendment rights. We are fighting back against this insane woke culture that is encouraging a 15-year-old student to read a pornographic, explicit monologue in front of her class that she didn't even write. Okay, so it's not even that situation where other students could have, were complaining. She was forced to perform it, and then when she was upset about it, her mother goes to the larger school board. They only let her get about a minute in. Can we play that? Let's play that, because, again, these are all adults. Hear how they react.
This will be horrifying for me to read to you, but that will give you perspective on how she must have felt when her teacher required her to memorize this and to act it out in front of her entire class. I don't love you. It's not you. It's just, I don't like your dick, or any dick in that case. I cheated, Joe.
I'm sorry.
This is propaganda.
Forgive me. Excuse me. I don't. Thank you so much for your. Thank you for your comment. Forgive me. We're not using profanity. Simply, this is a public meeting. I asked for decorum.
If you don't want me to read it to you, what was that like for my 15-year-old daughter to have to memorize pornographic material?
So there you go. One sentence, Logan. I mean, if you go to ACLJ.org, you will see that's nothing compared to what the rest of it is.
Yeah, but of course you couldn't make it through one sentence without people starting to yell and scream in the back, and then obviously you hear, we're not going to tolerate that kind of language here.
They do not want they don't want the public to know, including the parents, what their kids are being taught. They really don't. They shut it down. Because you know what? They're still a little embarrassed.
Oh, they got to be panicking when she starts reading those things, because it's not like anyone would want their kid doing that.
You think that? But a lot of these school boards, Logan, we see the curriculum. It's pretty bad.
I think the school boards and the people at school may, but the actual parents wouldn't. They know once they're exposed that this is what's going on in your classroom.
No, so the school board tries to shut it down, act like, no, move on. Thank you, moving on. Treat her like she's some crazy person or something. She's just reading the monologue that the teacher at their school forced her daughter to perform. We're fighting back there at ACLJ. You can learn about it at ACLJ.org. If you think you need legal help, you contact us, ACLJ.org/help. We're taking your calls at 1-800-684-3110. We want to challenge that Washington state law. If you're there, if you've got children between the age of 10 and 17, we want you to contact us at ACLJ.org/help.
That's right. Reach out and go to ACLJ.org also for not only that, for incredible content. If for some reason we lose you, you're on some of the terrestrial stations, only pick up the first half hour, join us live. We got another half hour coming up. We got Mike Pompeo joining us. You're going to want to hear it. Find us broadcasting later on all the podcast feeds, as well as on all social media platforms. Search for ACLJ, J. Jordan Sekulow. You can find us broadcasting there as well. And again, ACLJ.org if you think that we could use our help, or if you want to support the work we're doing. We'll be right back.
The ACLJ has a 30-plus year history of fighting on behalf of you, our members, in support of life,
abortion's murder,
religious liberty.
A Turkish court has freed American pastor Andrew Brunson.
Justice, personal freedom, and constitutional government. Our freedoms are under attack. Now, more than ever.
We are not going back. Abortion is okay.
Yet another week of violence.
They use their power and influence to push deeply un-American causes that threaten to destroy our country. Abortion on demand, socialism, inflation, cancel culture, weakness in the face of our adversaries. We owe it to our kids and grandkids to defend the things that make this country great. It's time to take the gloves off and uphold American values. Go to acljaction.org to learn more.
Keeping you informed and engaged. now more than ever. This is Sekulow. And now your host, Jordan Sekulow.
Welcome back to Sekulow. We are taking your calls to 1-800-684-3110. Our senior counsel for global affairs, Mike Pompeo, is going to be joining us in just a minute. We're going to be talking about immigration, the border. A lot of conflicting news out of there. Like, we're expecting a surge, and the media told us it wasn't a surge, but is that because instead of 10,000 people a day, which was last week, it's now 6,500 people a day. So they act like that's a great victory. I mean, there's still massive amounts of people, and it's kind of just getting started. What we did see, though, was the administration allow Texas to do what usually they have tried to prevent states from doing, which actually use their law enforcement or National Guard, like the Texas National Guard, State Guard resources. And we know that they were very effective in areas they were deployed, and the federal government did not file a lawsuit this time to try and prevent them from taking on those actions. So as the Biden administration, without telling kind of the left, but instead of the usual file the lawsuit, state can't be involved, this is just a federal issue, only up to the federal government, they allow those Texas state troopers and Texas National Guard to go down and help secure it. It seemed like they were very effective. How long that lasts, we don't know. But what we do know is it is still a disaster. And we're going to talk to Mike Pompeo about that. We're going to talk about some of the world news, too. Erdogan in Turkey, a NATO ally, is in a runoff election, the most serious election challenge he's had in 2 decades. And he says he would abide by the results. We'll talk about, again, the importance of that as well. But I do want to remind you, again, of all of this legal work the ACLJ is doing right here in the United States on behalf of you. It's when you need help. Whether you are the park volunteer and part-time employee, like Gary Formal, who contacts at aclj.org/help because he felt his constitutional rights were being violated. He was right, and we're fighting back with him. If you are a parent and you're in that situation where your teenage daughter is forced to read this horrific, pornographic and obscene monologue, not of her choosing, by the way, and have to perform it, and then has the audacity to be upset about it, and then gets totally mistreated by the school to the point where we are alleging in our lawsuit assault and battery, not just First Amendment claims here. Contact us at aclj.org/help. That's why we are here. It is to represent you. It is to fight with you. It is to fight with the brave individuals who are willing to stand up and fight for constitutional rights that impact then all of us, to make sure that all of us keep our the rights we are guaranteed under our Constitution and laws. We go to the phones, Logan, at 1-800-684-3110.
Let's go to Rick quickly in California. You're on the air.
Hey, thanks for having me here. Just a quick comment as you're going through all the subjects you're touching, from the child school, from immigration, from these laws in Washington that are permitting to Washington, soon to California and other places. A lot of it is coming down from Canada as well. As you know, nationwide, Canada has a lot of these laws already implemented, as this agenda is reaching different areas of not just this country but the globe at different levels of intensity, as it's daunting its societies to see how much each society is taking. And it is very, very difficult when you look at all these things, including immigration here, now we can call California, Hotel California, not to think that this is on purpose. I mean, you can't make this up.
No, you can't. No, it's absurd. I think when I read the monologue, the obscenity from what happened in Nevada, it's you almost can't believe it's true. I mean, I get that reaction, but then you see the school board meeting, you read the complaint. You realize, no, this is, and you see all these stories about how the teachers don't want the parents knowing what they're teaching in class. You hear about how crazy sex ed has gotten into like kindergarten levels of students. And you say, is that really true? Is that really happening? Well, this is one of those cases that show, yeah, it is. Or can you be a volunteer at a park that gets the award of excellence a few years ago and then gets told you've got to either take off your private vehicle's bumper stickers or stickers on the window or quit? That you have no First Amendment rights. Well, that's why we're fighting at the ACLJ. Support our work. Donate today. ACLJ.org. We'll be back with Mike Pompeo.
United United States military veterans were kicked to the curb by hotels in suburban New York City after a busload of 60 migrants were sent to the town of Newburgh by New York City Mayor Eric Adams.
It's a total embarrassment. It's a slap in the face to veterans, to citizens of New York and this country who are really being cast aside to allow for asylum seekers to come here. At the end of the day, when it comes to this particular situation, you had combat veterans who are homeless, who were told to get out of their hotel after one day.
The CEO of the YIT Foundation, which is helping to house those vets, tells the New York Post, whether you agree with asylum seekers being here or not, we can't just ignore these veterans that are in our charge that we are supposed to protect. We need to put them first.
We don't know how far-reaching this is, and what Sharon has been hearing is throughout the country, other veterans organizations and other organizations that really help at-risk Americans are coming forward and letting her know, hey, this happened to us, but they're afraid to speak out.
I do expect this situation to get worse before it gets better, but hopefully with your reporting and keeping people honest, hotels will think twice before they kick out not just our homeless veterans, but wedding parties and citizens of this state and this country. They come first.
It's reported these hotels make close to $190 a night housing migrants, compared to just $90 a night housing vets.
It's been about the money. We wanted to shine a light on this because we don't want any other hotels to do what they've done to these patriotic Americans.
It's incredible that the vets are being kicked out so that there's room for illegals.
And by the way, one of these veterans, 30 years old, he was there for the Afghanistan pullout. For me, one of the most embarrassing moments for our country in our history. And after getting home, he was kicked out of this hotel, trying to reintegrate back into our society.
Sekulow. We are joined by our senior counsel for global affairs, the former Secretary of State, Mike Pompeo. And Secretary Pompeo, we're starting to see how the influx of migrants are affecting Americans deep inside the country, not just on our southern border, but into cities across the country. And this, of course, a lot of this is in light of the expiration of Title 42 and no laws that Senate Democrats not wanting to pass any laws that would extend this similar kind of power to the Biden administration. They voted against it. Now we've got a report that homeless veterans are being cleared out of temporary housing to make way for incoming migrants. I mean, it doesn't seem like you could do anything worse to those who served our country, who find themselves in a tough situation, being homeless at the time, trying to get out of that situation, and they're kicked to the curb. These are people who risked their life, volunteered their life to serve our country.
Jordan, it's outrageous. It's first of all, it's outrageous that we have this enormous influx. It is then secondarily outrageous that someone would have made a decision to say, I'm a soldier, I'm a veteran. To say to a veteran, you know what, we've been taking care of you, we've been helping you, but we're not going to do that. And we're going to take your place, someone who broke the law to get in here. You know, the juxtaposition couldn't be clearer, Jordan. These are people who sacrifice some part of their life to serve America. And the government is making the statement, nope, we value you less than someone that took a risk to themselves and their family to break American sovereignty. I hope that these stories prove to be just not capturing the reality, but you see the video, you see the pictures, and whoever is responsible for this decision, I think we should all make clear that this is so far out of bounds. This is so indecent. This is so fundamentally at odds with our country. Jordan, we've talked about the recruiting problem in our military. You want to make it worse? Tell someone who's thinking about signing up to go to an Army recruiting station or a Navy recruiting station, hey, we think illegal immigrants are more important than you as a veteran. You're going to exacerbate the capacity of us to build the fighting force that American people need. It's absolutely tragic to see this taking place in the United States of America, Jordan.
When you're talking about our nation's veterans, it's like the first community of Americans we should be taking care of if they fall on tough times. And whatever they've gone through, whether it's serving our country or whether it's related to their service, as oftentimes it is, that they are dealing with issues that make it tough for them to get back into regular life here at home, and then to kind of kick them to the curb because of the problem of too many illegal immigrants in our country. Now, we've got like gloating going on by the Biden administration because there were only 6,300 encounters a day over the weekend instead of 10,000 that were in the days leading up to the Title 42's expiration. And you've even got the media kind of jumping on this and say, well, maybe it's working. I mean, those are all record-breaking numbers. The 10,000 was record-breaking. The 6,300 would have been record-breaking before the 10,000. So is it just more evidence that they're totally clueless about why the American people are actually concerned? I don't think they're saying like, well, there were 3,000 less today, so this isn't going to be it's not going to impact me in my city.
I'm only chuckling because it is so ludicrous to think that 6,300 is an improvement. I suppose in some absolute sense it is, but it is still equally devastating to the United States of America. I think, Jordan, about my time when we were working on Remain in Mexico. Had we told the president, hey, we're going to be down to 6,300 people coming in tomorrow, I would have been the former Secretary of State. This is beyond what has happened. We shouldn't, Jordan, I should remind all your viewers, all your listeners, we shouldn't for a moment take the Biden storyline that says, hey, this just happens. This has always been going on. It's been a problem for decades. There's nothing we can do. The truth is we know precisely what to do. We know precisely how to stop this problem. We had stopped it for the last 2.5 years of the Trump administration, and they came in and ripped the Band-Aid, made a political decision. You know, you think about these two things we've just been talking about, trading illegal immigrants for homeless veterans in places where they can get a good night's sleep. And second, a decision to say, and also on top of that, there's only 6,300 coming in a day. This shows a disconnectedness with the American people and with reality in a way that really puts American security at risk.
Yeah, I mean, some of that is because they're kind of turning a blind eye to what Texas is doing on their own. Usually they would file lawsuits against that as they did against Arizona, and there's legal precedent that they probably could have here, but maybe they don't want to make a big deal of it to the left, but they are letting a lot of the Texas National Guard do what they would typically argue in federal court they don't have the constitutional or authority to do. That's been interesting to watch. I do want to shift to what's we know is also a serious problem, is not just the numbers and the thousands of people, but the terror watch list, the individuals on the terror watch list. We know over 70 terrorists have been captured. Those were ones that were actually captured. They were not gotaways. And there was another one, again, an Afghani man on the terror watch list apprehended near San Diego this weekend. When you look at the bigger number, that there are more than 1.2 million from CBP, their estimate, 1.2 million known gotaways under the Biden administration. That's under the last three and a half so years. 1.2 million people who they know have entered the country but know nothing else about. And you know that there are terrorists being captured by the CBP. It seems like it puts us at risk, it's not just the fentanyl, it's not just the impact it has on our services and our infrastructure, and that we're not prepared for this many people in these towns and cities, but it also puts us at risk again of terror attacks.
Jordan, I remember the work we were doing to make sure not only that we were catching and returning illegal immigrants to their country of origin, but that we were identifying those who were either on the terror watch list or we had data sets that suggested these people put the United States at risk by the fact that they are connected to folks on the terror list. And now we got over 1 million people. We have no earthly idea. Here's what we can say with almost a certainty. The Afghan that they identified in San Diego, there was an Iranian they identified in Texas, both on the terror watch list, now several dozen. This is tip of the iceberg stuff. And as this border becomes so porous, so wide open, it's not just the random person who comes across, who we happen to have identified to be on the terror watch list. Nations, terrorist groups who want to do harm to America will begin to organize operations, intentionally bringing these people in an organized way to build out networks inside of our country that our local law enforcement and the FBI just don't have the capacity to identify. Real risk, Jordan. Someday, I pray I'm wrong, but someday I fear there'll be an incident and we will look back and say, oh my goodness, how did that team get in here? How did those operators actually get on the ground? And the answer will be, they didn't come through an airport. They didn't show a passport. They came into our country when our borders were wide open, and there'll be a real incident where Americans have been harmed, and we'll all look back and recognize how stupid it was, what we're doing today, and then begin to say, oh gosh, I wish we would have done it differently. I hope I'm wrong.
I mean, it's a huge impact on our infrastructure, but I think what always concerns most people is all of the bad actors that make their way through this process because of the amount of people, just the amount of people. So the drug traffickers, the terrorists, the human traffickers, the sex traffickers, the child traffickers. I mean, just so many different kinds of bad actors who look at chaotic situations as they usually do around the world and say, that's where we should go. That's where we should be. And there's no better market and bigger market financially than the U.S. market. And they know that they can sell their drugs to our kids. And the number one killer of 18 to 45-year-olds in the United States is fentanyl, which created in China but is brought across mainly by our southern border. So I think you're absolutely right. This idea that one day we're going to look back and say, why did we allow this when we knew it was killing so many Americans? I want to turn to one international issue out of Turkey, because a NATO ally that usually when their president is up for re-election doesn't make a ton of news, but this time it has, because President Erdogan is in a runoff with his top opponent, which is it's kind of a lot of different political parties got together and just said they've had enough of Erdogan. And so far, our NATO ally and that president said, that he's going to allow the runoff to move forward. Do you expect anything? I mean, can't predict how the runoff will go down, but it's pretty unique in the history of Erdogan's rule to even get to this point.
Yes, Jordan, pretty unique. Mixed reports on what happened at the ballot box last night. There were reports of fraud incidents where ballot boxes counted too often or not enough. So still remains to be seen precisely, but it does look like there's going to be a runoff. What I hope is the Turkish people get the chance to actually vote in a legitimate way, much like I pray that happens here every election in the United States, and get a chance to express their opinion. The fact that President Erdogan got less than 50% or looks to have in this first election certainly tells you that there's deep dissatisfaction with rampant inflation and the like. And we'll see what happens in the runoff. My hope is that whoever comes out of this begins to be a really good NATO partner, right? Kicking out the Russians, allowing the Swedes to join NATO, and becomes a partner in NATO. Turkey can absolutely do that. These are amazing people with innovation, creativity. We just need their economy to get back on track and their leadership to understand that being firmly planted in the West is the right solution.
Secretary Pompeo, we always appreciate your insight, our Senior Counsel for Global Affairs at the ACLJ. You know, what's interesting in Turkey, Logan, is that while a lot of rights don't exist to the way that they should in a NATO ally, the right to vote is still one that people take very seriously there. So there's always very big voter turnout. It's kind of your one way left to let your voice be heard anonymously.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see how all of it kind of shakes out. Hey, give us a call, 1-800-684-3110. Taking your calls in the next segment.
In my time in service, both as the CI director and as Secretary of State, I watched the good work that the ACLJ was doing here in the States and all across the world.
The ACLJ's work at the UN, overseas with the European Court of Justice, is incredibly important.
We have on our team lawyers, non-lawyers as well, that are policy experts. They're all engaged in foreign policy issues.
We have been focused on protecting the nation state of Israel, particularly before the United Nations.
We don't shy away from the battles that are going on at the UN and just complain about them. We actually try to go in and do something positive and actually affect change.
The risk of an incomplete or unsolid relationship within the United States of America and Israel is real.
Israel is very important to the ACLJ, and we will always fight for Israel's rights.
We had a series of cases at the European Court of Human Rights, primarily dealing with religious liberty.
And as Secretary of State, I saw this too. Nations that had more religious freedom were on firmer footing. They had better democracies.
America has always been the world leader in religious liberties, in freedom of conscience and freedom of speech.
We've taken the First Amendment, and that has been our cornerstone. It's to defend the rights of people of faith and others that are having their rights abused.
We not only hold our government accountable, but we hold other governments accountable.
You have to keep the battle going when it's not cool anymore. when it's not the number one story on TV, you have to actually be committed to finding it out, or else you'll never win.
The ACLJ is front and center on this, whether it is going after the deep state, whether it is litigation that we're engaged in. Your support of the ACLJ enables us to do all of this. Go to aclj.org today. That's aclj.org.
Welcome back to Sekulow. We are taking your call to 1-800-684-3110. I will go to Marianne first out of Washington State, online too. Hey, Marianne.
Thank you very much for taking my call.
Thank you.
A couple of comments that I had to make. Number one, I'm a supporter of what you do, and I have used you in the past, and that's been really great. That state park they were talking about is one of our favorite places to go and to camp. And we have loved that place for years. So it's just irritating as all get out to hear that. So thank you for that.
Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, it's interesting because it's a policy. Listen, when Gary, our client, Gary Formals, signed the policy, it reads as public contact and communication. The way he read it and the way they read it at the time, because he had the stickers on since 2016 and he won the Award of Excellence in 2019, and it wasn't until someone complained via email in 2023, a few weeks ago, that he was told to take the stickers off or quit. So basically fired. That was for public contact and communication. That's like if you're going to be in a park outfit or uniform, you're not going to express your personal political views. That's normal, and he was never accused of doing that. Also, if you're going to if you're driving a park vehicle, not your own private vehicle, but a park vehicle, you're not going to slap a political sticker on there. That would be, again, normal. That's normal in that kind of position. But it's like when you drive to go work for the federal government in your vehicle, that's one thing. You know, if you go drive to work at the state, so again, the policy that they're saying he violated. They only determined he violated 10 years into his service with the park. And the initial folks there, when they first got this email, said, I don't think there's anything wrong here. This is his personal vehicle, you know, that he parks and backs in, and people came in. It's like someone had to go out of their way.
Let's just have there's one complaint.
Someone went out of their way to call him an insurrectionist. This is a person who is a military veteran who volunteers his time to take care of a park, which is obviously, as we heard from listeners, a beloved place for people
already
to visit.
Being a hostile response, not a, hey, you know, I don't really like that there's political speech going on here. You know, I feel like we're in a public place, you know, or public park employees. Maybe it's not that. It's calling someone insurrectionist right up front. You know where they're coming from. You can imagine who this person is in your head, you know, who got this angry over a couple bumper stickers. Let's go ahead and keep the phones going. Let's go to Peter, who's calling in Alaska on line 1. And if you want to call in, give us a call, 1-800-684-3110, 1-800-684-3110. We got about 5 minutes until the end of the show, so you got a little bit of time to get your call in right now. Peter, you're on the air.
Thank you for taking my call. And my concern is about the child that had to read the pornographic material. And I was wondering what the teachers and people are teaching our children, that they're thinking that, I mean, whoever wrote the material thought it was okay that they did that. So something's being taught. So that's my concern. And
you know, it's interesting, Peter. In this case, one of the teachers' first responses was that, well, I actually edited this to make it less bad,
less graphic,
and it was even worse. And that was their response. Well, that was even worse. But I think you make a good point. The teacher didn't pull this from the hat and say, "Wait, this goes way over the broad." Because even if you said the students could be very creative on their own, I'm not going to make another student randomly have to perform this. This is something, again, that would a lot of people would not only face public embarrassment, but like emotional distress, which are real violations of law here when we talk about that. Putting someone, especially a minor, in that kind of situation. So a teacher could have said, even if they hadn't been clear, you know what, this is not right for this exercise that we're doing. So I'm going to take this out. In fact, they thought they needed to edit it, so they were halfway there. But then when the teacher knew that the student was upset, they end up, against, by the way, the student's request, forcing her in a room with the teacher one-on-one, and the teacher assaults,
male teacher,
grabs her.
I think
it's just
you got to be clear. Also,
we're talking about a 15-year-old kid.
You got to be also, as a parent, very vigilant of what your kid's homework is, what they're coming home with. Ask those questions, have those conversations, because this is an awkward. Especially if you read this speech, this would be awkward for anyone to even read with their parent.
Oh yeah.
So, bravo to this student who actually brought this up to their parent, because I think a lot of them would have just done it and just said, you know what, I don't want to talk to my parent about this. This is super awkward. This is very uncomfortable. So, good for them for standing up. Let's go continue the phone calls. Let's go to Justin, who's calling in the state of Virginia. You're on the air. Commonwealth.
Hey, thanks for taking my call. Not to sound lacking in compassion here, but just to switch subjects real quick. Why do we feel as though we owe illegal immigrants, anything? Shouldn't the onus be on the Mexican government to help handle this situation at least? It seems like it's pretty simple to figure out, but I don't know why it's so complicated.
Yeah, well, it is simple to how do you prevent illegal immigration. You build a wall. You spend more on border enforcement and technology. You make it more difficult to cross illegally. And you don't have policies, which, by the way, a judge, so don't let this one fool you, because it wasn't the Biden administration who wanted this. A federal judge late on Friday night said, by the way, you can't just let people out without a court date. If you're going to let them out with asylum claim, you have to give them a court date. So not just randomly let into the country. That was a district court judge. We'll see if that decision holds. I'm sure the Biden administration is going to challenge that. They wanted to just let people out and say, at some point in time, we're going to let you know when you've got a court date, and we'll tell you when and where to show up. Like, people are going to do that a decade from now, or they're even going to be able to keep track of them a decade from now. So that's one of the issues, is just a failure in doing what we know we could do to make it much more difficult to cross illegally. And then I think you get to the second part. Illegal immigrants, what they're owed is to be returned to their to either their country of origin or the last place they were. Now, a lot of these immigrants are not Mexican. They are utilizing Mexico to cross the southern border, but they represent 121 different countries. So there are problems all the way down throughout South America. There are people flying in. If you're from Haiti and you got to Mexico, okay, you were traveling either by boat or air to somehow get to the U.S. southern border to cross in illegally to the United States. And there's groups of Haitian migrants. And listen, if you have a legitimate asylum claim, there's a way to do that. And if you cross into a bunch of countries that you're no longer in danger of, guess what? You're not supposed to be able to make that claim in the country that you just want to be in. It's the country that you're safe in. And so there's issues there. So we don't have to have this problem.
Yeah, when there's hundreds of thousands of people, though, coming in, you also have to not just ignore it and say, well, it was on them. I think that's one of the things you brought up. Is why we have to figure out a solution to this. Also, I think one of the lies that's been told very much is that conservatives are not in favor of legal immigration. They kind of make it as a racist statement, saying
it's impossible to have people immigrate legally because there's no space for them. So the people who have been waiting in line for years, if not a decade, who are going through the process legally, they are the ones who are being hurt the most, because the people are illegally jumping the line and taking their place in a country where they have gone through the process to get here legally. We want you to support the work of the ACLJ. We just talked about two of our cases that we just filed late Friday and last week. When we represent those clients too, those are the ones that are brave and they're standing up for all of our rights. That people say, I'm not going to take this. I'm going to contact the ACLJ. So if you've got a similar situation, contact us at aclj.org/help. Find yourself in Washington State, you've got a kid between the age of 10 and 17, contact us at aclj.org/help. And we can do this work because of our donors. You can donate today at aclj.org. We'll talk to you tomorrow.